And so in July of 22, I was appointed superintendent. And I can tell you, it still does not feel real. I still feel like I'm going to go back to my last assignment. And the hairs on my neck stand up almost every time somebody says, well, you'll have to go ask the superintendent. And I just kind of look around and I'm like, oh my God, that's me.
I'm Amanda Bratton.
And I'm Lisa Thane.
And this is Education Uncharted.
So I'm so excited today because we get to speak with Al Lewis. And Al, I think it's just great because you started as a teacher, you went to the district level, and now you are an award-winning superintendent. So could you tell us just a bit about your history just to get us started here?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here. And the hairs on my neck just stood up when you said that. It still doesn't feel real. Wednesday night, this past Wednesday, I was given the NAS, which is the National Association of School Superintendents, National Award for Small School Leadership. It's very surreal. To be honest, when they announced my name, I sat there for a good 10 seconds and just kept shaking my head no. I just don't feel like I'm worthy of such an honor. I didn't even know they knew who I was. And I have amazing colleagues across the nation, many of whom I got to meet at the conference, and they're all doing wonderful things. And as I said at the conference to the group, I'm proof that God can do the impossible because there's no reason why I'm a superintendent, let alone one that has won an award at all. I started as a kindergarten paraprofessional, actually, and then I co-taught in a kindergarten room. I was a maternity leave teacher, and then I taught full-time third, fourth, and fifth grade in southern New Jersey in a very affluent school district, which was very different from how I grew up. So that was very interesting to see how other folks live. We all take our backgrounds for granted, and we assume what we have is normal, and that everyone's experiences are the same as ours. And whether it's affluence or poverty, that's just not true. Then I switched and went over to the dark side to administration. And for 9 years, I was a STEM supervisor in Gloucester Township, New Jersey, which is also in southern New Jersey. And I would say the highlight of my time in Gloucester Township was I created a STEM camp, summer camp for underprivileged students. So underrepresented groups, Title I students that ran free of charge for families. And then someone handed me a posting for Weymouth Township's superintendency, and I told them they were insane, that I was not ready. I think I was 36 when I became a superintendent. I believe at one point I may have been the youngest superintendent in New Jersey, which was very weird to think. And I applied, and I went to a public meeting where they were going to have the community come out and give feedback on what they wanted in their next superintendent. So my neighbor Jimmy is a principal, and we debated for about a week of whether I would go or not, and just hide in the back of the meeting. And here, were people coming out with pitchforks? Was the school running well? Were things going poorly? Did it mesh with who I was and what my vision was for a school district? And I went, and I was the only member of the public. And I sat in the back of the room in a hoodie and just kind of just folded my hands and shrunk into the back of my school's library. And at one point, the entire board turned around with their search consultant and asked me, they said, "Sir, do you have any questions?" And I just froze. And I'm like, "No, I'm good." And my wife wanted to kill me because she said, "You should have told them." And I said, "No, I want to get the interview on my own, right?" So I applied, I interviewed, it went exceedingly well, good mesh of culture and vision for the school. It was a place with very low community engagement. I'm a big person for community engagement, social media use. And so in July of 22, I was appointed superintendent. And I can tell you, it still does not feel real. I still feel like I'm going to go back to my last assignment. And the hairs on my neck stand up almost every time somebody says, well, you'll have to go ask the superintendent. And I just kind of look around and I'm like, oh my God, that's me. So it's gone really well. Weymouth was in need of a lot of attention, a lot of fixing. There were a lot of issues in some of the operations. And we've done a really dramatic turnaround. We've gone from a school district that at one point I was asked, were we going to go into deficit spending? Would the state need to take us over? And I'm really proud to say that right now we're, a model community for Atlantic County, New Jersey, which is really, really special to me.
That's amazing. So now, wait, how many years was it from being a para in kindergarten to being appointed superintendent?
16 years.
16 years. And you didn't start with your sights set on being a superintendent at all. So it just kind of it sounds almost like it kind of fell in your lap
Yeah.
almost.
Like I said, I have to give credit to where the real source is, but God's been good. He's been good to me. He's been good to my family. I 1000% never thought I would be a superintendent. I thought I was just going to be a teacher, and I loved teaching. I love working with kids. I coach youth ice hockey in my like off work hours, and I just love being in a classroom. The classroom for me was a safe space growing up. I grew up in a single parent household. I remind people that often the meals we serve in Weymouth are the best meals that kids eat that day. And that was certainly, an experience for me too, growing up. So no, not at all. In fact, I didn't even think I would go into administration. And I got the itch around my 4th year of teaching, where I felt like I'd had a big enough handle on the school year and the job and the duties. And I started thinking, I'm helping 25 to 30 kids a year, but what if I was helping 250 to 300 a year or 600 a year? And my wife is my rock. She, she encouraged me to pursue my master's, encouraged me to pursue my admin cert. And administration was very interesting, especially central office. So I skipped over being a building principal.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, my experiences now in Weymouth are my first time really operating a building, on my own. And, she kept encouraging me, and she reminded me, although I forgot, my wife has the best memory in the world, but I forgot. And when I enrolled in my doctoral program in 21, she said, I told you were going to get your doctorate. And she's like, and I told you were going to be a superintendent when we were first married. And I'm like, I definitely don't remember at all. But I know she's right. Like, she just remembers everything. But yeah, no, 1,000%, that was not the plan. And like I said, I just pinch myself. It doesn't feel real. I'm still amazed anyone would pick me to lead anything, quite frankly. I just look at leadership as I'm the kind of person, if I'm out at a store, I see someone needs help, I just jump in and help. Like, to me, that's just the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
I believe I was called to serve others.
Right.
And that's, to me, is leadership. And I guess that's how I ended up here.
Okay. So your 4th year of teaching. So what kind of stood out to me just then is my 4th year of teaching, I went for my national board certification, which is the first year you could do it. It's your 4th year. And a lot of people told me I was presumptuous for even thinking that I could go through this process when it was so hard and intensive. And you had your sights set on admin at your 4th year. So did you get any of that pushback? I mean, you had a little bit of that personal pushback of yourself, like, am I qualified? Am I doing this? But maybe for those teachers that have been teaching for just a couple years, but think, is there something else I can do? What kind of pushback did you get, and how did you move past that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I did, to be honest, I did get some pushback as a teacher, and then as an administrative candidate. I was supported by amazing colleagues. In fact, one of my colleagues is the one who started me thinking about administration. She kind of patted me on the shoulder and said, like, hey, buddy, like, you need to consider this. You're very good. This is something you'd be good at. But I did have other colleagues who, kind of thought I was too big for my britches, which I think anyone who really knows me knows that I really have zero ego. I've been an ice hockey goaltender now for 33 years. Like, I am the most, like, unflappable, just calm, like, middle of the road person. Like, I'm not really somebody who's set out to, like, make a name or anything like that. But I did have people say to me, like, oh, do you think you're going to be my boss one day? And I would say, no, I don't. Quite frankly, no. But I knew I might want to be there one day, so I might as well get the cert. And honestly, that's what I did with my superintendent cert as well. Although I got it much quieter because I knew that there might be some pushback. But even as a teacher, I had a colleague tell me to stop showing off with, like, great lessons or great projects. And I just felt bad for that person, because to me, like, these are all for the kids, right? I mean, that is the mission of any school district, is to raise productive citizens who are happy and healthy, whole people. And I certainly wasn't doing it, to embarrass anyone or put them down or make them look like they weren't doing as good of a job. But yeah, I did, to be honest. And it was also awkward. My principal was retiring the year after. Like, she had notified everyone that she was going to retire after I had put in for my administrative internship. So there was this, like, natural kind of, like, anxiety, like, oh, was he going to just, like, be her heir apparent, which was not the plan for any of us. So
Right.
It was awkward.
So what did you
what did you do to try to bridge that gap, right? Because you were getting some guidance in leadership from some of your peers, or maybe some people who were a little bit more your senior, and then your on level peers, some of them were giving you that pushback. So how did you maneuver in that space while saying, listen, I do care about what I'm doing right now, and this is, maybe what's next? And how did you deal with that?
It's actually very funny because I can pinpoint one exact moment where I feel like the tension really just completely dissolved. At the time, I would never dress down on Dress Down Fridays. And it was just really like a psychological thing for me. Like I found that and I'm not this way now, like I dress down now all Fridays with my staff, unless like I have a meeting or something. But so I was known for that, and people would kind of like tease me and say like, come on, dress down. Like, you don't have to wear a shirt and tie every day. Like, come on, dress down for Friday. And so I told everybody that for Halloween, for the school's Halloween parade, I would dress like I was on like the Bahamas, like, the vacation shirt and shorts and sandals, if they dressed up as me.
Oh,
so I had 4 female
great.
colleagues in 5th grade, and they all dressed up as me, like khakis, shirt and tie. They put like a goatee on. And I didn't tell them, but I went and I got a tuxedo and a king's crown. And I made a blown up ID badge that said principal in training. And I totally just steered into the skid. And so they all show up that day dressed as me, and I show up as me as the king. And they just lost it. And I think for me, it was like a growth opportunity, because I think there's reflecting in it. I probably took myself too seriously, just even as a teacher. You want to do a good job and you want to take things seriously. But I think maybe sometimes it can come off, if you don't know me very well, as like being kind of intense. And I've had people tell me that, and I'm like, I'm the least intense person you're going to meet. Like, I'm usually very chill about everything. But I think in that moment, everyone just kind of saw like, okay, he can poke fun at himself. He can be silly about the situation, and things after that really sort of calmed down.
I've actually had one superintendent that I really loved. I really got to know. It was Dan Dominic in Fairfax County in Virginia, and he was great. But I knew him on a personal level because I was an emergency foster parent, and he was an emergency foster parent. So I actually knew him through the VEFC, which is the foster care program that we worked with. So I knew him on a personal level as a superintendent first, and then I found out and I was like, oh, wow. And so I could connect with him. But then when I went to a different county, we got a new superintendent. She came to visit. My classroom was one of the ones chosen. I was terrified because all of a sudden it's this big, important person who you never see as a teacher. Like, they're the ones that sign the letters. They tell you when you're getting out for snow, right? But they're not someone that come into your classroom. So all of a sudden you feel like there's such a separation between being a teacher and a superintendent, even though, yes, you are a teacher, but now you're this big, lofty, high position, right? The Oz in the sky kind of a person. And then you come in and you almost feel like, as a teacher, I have to be on my best behavior. I have to do the dog and pony show. I have to make sure my students are on their best behavior. And it's a very terrifying thing. And I know it's just an upper administration level, but how do you, now that you've gone through those levels and you realize you needed to be a little bit more in tune with the people around you, how do you maintain that? How do you connect with teachers, even though you're in this upper position? How do you still connect with the teachers?
Yeah, I think part of it is you have to have a heart that is still in the classroom, right? I mean, we're all educators. And when people ask me, like out at social events, like, what do you do? And I say, I work in an elementary school, because that is who I am. I'm just an elementary teacher. I look at what I'm doing as service to those folks, right? Because if they're not at their best, their kids are not at their best. And then the organization is not at its best. I can tell you that I am sometimes like overly forward with my background and like who my family is. Like obviously my family is everything to me. And I think being really open and upfront with people about who you are outside of work really helps them bring their guard down. Especially Gloucester Township, which was a very large district, like 11 for New Jersey, at least 11 schools, 7,000 students, 750 staff members. I would put reminders in my calendar of, hey, go ask Lisa, how her kid was. He broke his leg. Like, I would put that as an appointment. And
That's
then
awesome.
the next time I went to that school, I'd make sure I'd stop by. And it takes time. Like in my first year, there were a lot of new faces, a lot of new names, and trying to piece those relationships all together just takes time. So as a leader, you need to be invested and you have to be in the classroom. If you want to connect with the people in the classroom, you've got to be in there consistently and routinely. And at our conference, actually, one of my colleagues talked about that, about the difference, right? Consistency is doing it every day. Routine is making it a specific part of your day. You have to be there regularly and be closely involved with the teachers. What you say matters, how you say it matters, but what you say matters. And telling folks, when I come into a room, I really don't want you to stop. You don't have to greet me. I'm just another employee here. Just like if your colleague walked in, you wouldn't say, oh, hey, Mrs. Smith, like, thanks so much for stopping by. Like, just keep teaching. Don't put on a dog and pony show. And frankly, as administrators, we know it's a dog and pony show. We don't want that, right? I want the genuine, real you. I want your kids. And that's why we have these teachers, right? Weymouth Township, we have outstanding teachers. That's why we have them, because we know things aren't perfect. If they were perfect, why would we have any of the supports that we have in place? So you just have to put yourself in there.
And you're there not just to spy on the capabilities of the teacher. It seems to me like you're visiting because you're trying to stay current, right? Like, what is actually happening in your classroom? What's happening in fifth grade right now? And how are you maybe applying some of the new things that you've learned? I just want to see what it looks like. I'm not judging you. I'm not critiquing you. I'm not coming here to give you feedback. I just want to be clear that I'm still trying to learn from you, right? I mean, it sounds like that's a lot of the way that you look at being in a classroom.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the more you filter the message, the most of the message is lost, right? If a teacher is struggling, they don't want to tell their administrator they're struggling to begin with. And even if they do, the administrator, like the building administrator, certainly doesn't want to tell me that their building is struggling, right? Because that reflects poorly on them, or at least they interpret it as so. So the closer you get to the source of the information, the better. And I want to be there and know what's not working. What can I fix? Because that's why I'm here, right? I'm the problem solver.
So I think that's great that you want to fix these problems and solve these problems. And I don't know, I think when we think about a superintendent coming on and a new superintendent coming on, we say, oh, that's going to be our champion. That's going to be the person that is. And so we look for that teacher background. We look for a successful background. But teachers and schools aren't your only client, right? So there's so many stakeholders that you have to deal with. How do you deal with that community and not deal with it, but how do you incorporate everyone's needs and everything together and balance what teachers need and what as a teacher that I'd want to come in and change the world and do this with what the whole community needs.
Yeah, I would say for the teacher piece, you have to depersonalize it. And that was something I learned in my role as a curriculum supervisor was, it's not my science program, it's theirs. So if they pick something that they're passionate about, they're going to implement with enthusiasm, that means way more than what I was looking for, right? We want I don't want to say the workers, but like we want the people who are going to be doing the work to be happy and confident in what they have and what they do, both programmatically and then policy-wise too, because they're the ones who in the end implement all of that. The other side of that, like the community piece and the board piece, is a balancing act, right? I mean, there's that pull that the board is the superintendent's employer, just like they're everybody's employer. So you have to navigate those relationships. And in New Jersey, we can have as many as 9 board members, and I do. And trying to get 9 people to agree even on what to order for dinner is very difficult. So you're a lot of times their advisor and trying to give them good information and report to them how good the district is doing and shine a light on the things that are going well and the things that aren't. With the community, I know, like as a father, your first kid goes to pre-K or kindergarten. There's that like hollow feeling when you release them into the school and it's your first time really being away from them for a very long time. And I just have never forgotten that feeling. Stelly and Gavin are absolutely like the work of my life, like my pride and joy. But there's that piece as a parent where you're like, how are they doing? Like, are they making friends? Are they happy? What do they do all day with their teacher? Is their teacher nice? Is their teacher good? And so from a school standpoint, we put out as much information off school hours and especially on school hours as much as possible. We post usually like several videos or pictures a day because parents want to know the school is a happy place. And it is, but there's that unknown factor. And for some of us, our background in school was not good. Like I try and remind administrators of that the last time a parent sat in a principal's office, they may have been a child. So they go in and they get really tense and they're like in the principal's office. So I want folks to know, and they go to their phone and they're scrolling Instagram or Facebook or whatever, or Dojo, that they see their kid happy and smiling, right? They see the fun things we're doing, the supports we've put in place and how we're helping them. And then that brings parents in, right? When it seems like a good place to be, not only does the kid want to be there, which is half the battle, and the parent wants to be there. And we have an amazing HSA and they're in the school all the time doing fun things for us. So it's just building that, like almost like that avalanche of narrative that good things are happening. You want to be here, let's partner together.
That's a nugget right there, right? Where you are really being thoughtful about how you are reaching out to community. So I kind of want to walk through that again, because I think that that's something that is an easy takeaway, that you start by opening up your school, however that is. For you, it sounds like social media, right? You're opening it up. You're saying, welcome, come see what we're doing here. Make it feel comfortable. And then it's kind of a reciprocal action because you get the involvement of the people that you need.
Yeah.
And I think that's fantastic. Can you tell me a little bit more about how you might have also done some work within the community outside of parental involvement? Because I know that that's a focus for you as well, is really tying external stakeholders into what's happening at school.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the first things I did is set that foundational message of the school is not mine, it's not ours, it's the taxpayers. So when I'm in a building and I'm like introducing myself or a program or something like that, I will welcome the community to their building, or I'll say, welcome to the taxpayers building. This is Weymouth Township School. Because there's that ownership that I want the whole community to feel. Because it's common for folks that don't have children in school to feel like disassociated with the institution itself. And in Weymouth, the school really is the community's anchor. There's not much else in Weymouth other than town hall and a few stores. So I want folks who live in our 55 plus community to feel like that's their building too. And we're just the custodians of it. Like I'm making sure the community's investment doesn't burn to the ground, fall into disrepair or sour socially or culturally. And then I do have a very, very close relationship with our mayor and our fire chief and our New Jersey State Police. My father-in-law is a retired trooper, so I have this like natural like affinity to them. And then I can just picture like my wife and I were dating at the time and he would still be in uniform and everything. So I just love when the troopers come in and visit us. But our mayor is actually one of our bus drivers. His wife works in the cat.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
That's awesome.
The deputy mayor is our van driver. So we every morning and every afternoon we have a town hall meeting in front of the school because they're all there. But we work really closely together. Like we hung banners up with the school's logo and name, and the mayor sent down one of the trucks with a bucket to put them up for us. Like he goes above and beyond, and his granddaughter goes to our school. And
so it's really
a close-knit community. And then I'm at community events as much as possible. And that can be really tough with like my daughter's hockey schedule, but we make it work as much as possible. But I'm at like the Christmas tree lighting, and I'm holding Santa's hand and we're lighting the tree. I go to every like fundraiser that I can. And then likewise, we let the community use their building as they need to. So we've hosted, obviously like security trainings off hours. We've done community events. They use our parking lot. They use our gym. We've hosted rent control meetings. You have to bridge that gap and bring in those partnerships. And then on the flip side, then like external partnerships too. It's part of why I make the time to do, appearances and conferences and presentations, because there's that part of me that says like it's not worth it to me to be known as this amazing speaker or presenter or something. That's of very little value to me as a father and as a husband, but it's of value to the school because when people know about Weymouth Township, they want to partner with us. So I like have to force myself to go out there and do those things because it's what's best for kids.
Why is it? Though why I think we so often focus on just looking at numbers, right? And looking at where, are we covering the standards? Are students testing well? Are we, making sure that we're getting, we're improving outcomes on paper? What does the work that you're doing in the community, how does that reflect in the classroom or in students and their growth as young human beings?
In a lot of ways, like with like agencies, that obviously brings in free services.
Okay.
Where like our Lions Club that came in and did like vision and hearing testing for all the kids. When we bring in, we're working right now to schedule something with the Department of Homeland Security to come do free fingerprinting to combat like child exploitation for our youngest students. I had a good friend of mine who's a CEO of an ed tech donate his instructional program to our school free of charge, like the whole school. All those connections add services to the community. And then likewise, the stakeholders themselves, right? Then when I go out and say, like, we're going to need a bond for a new roof next year, now that the community is our partner, now I'm going to have to go and ask for money. And we're no longer this unknown entity or known as something they might have heard in a headline, like schools just spend their money and spend their tax dollars. Now they've been in the school, right? They've been in the building and they know it's theirs and it needs a roof, right? It can't have a leaking roof where their investment,
right,
goes into the ground. So building that network of support is really, really important for the kiddos and then for the building itself. At our literacy night, we had board members, community members, the mayor, people reading books to kids, baking cookies and bringing them in, hosting all these fun events. Like those are those things that they add to the fabric of a kid's experiences that the school doesn't often is able to provide, right? I mean, we couldn't just bake 500 cookies and donate them to ourselves, right? So when someone else comes in and says, like, hey, we're going to have this raffle for teachers and your teachers are going to be really excited, or hey, we're going to give out these prizes to the kids. Those are the things kids remember. I always say kids never remember their favorite worksheet, right? They remember everything but the work. And so that's the part we want them to be most excited about.
Al, we recognize that you are doing some amazing work in your district. You clearly have been recognized outside of your district for all of that amazing work. But what about the teachers who feel that they don't have that kind of community connection? They don't have the support of their superintendent in the way that you are giving that support in your district. What does that gap feel like, and how could you speak to teachers in this space to kind of help them figure out how they can bridge that gap?
Yeah. Teaching is a very lonely profession, right? You go to your classroom, you teach in that classroom, and people may or may not come into the classroom, and you feel like you're all alone and you're kind of trapped in this classroom. And I remember feeling that way. And, I often tease the biggest difference between being an administrator and a teacher is you get to use the bathroom whenever you want to. It's pretty nice. But I remember that feeling of like being like stuck physically in my space. And then you add the emotional component of it where you don't feel like you have support, which sometimes isn't even a negative. It's just maybe an absence of support. And I'd be lying to say, there aren't days where there's a crisis and I'm not in classrooms. And in larger districts, there could be 50 schools and the superintendent might only see you once a year. But the beauty of the classroom is that it's your own microenvironment and you get to make it the way you want it to be. So if I was talking to a group of teachers who felt like they didn't have that support from a broader base, that would be my encouragement to them, is make it the way that you want it to be. As a teacher, I use like a token economy. I put my face on like play money and the kids could buy lunch with me. They could buy, I'd go visit them. Like as a teacher, I'd go to their sports events or visited a couple churches with them. They would invite me to everything. Make that community engagement piece your hallmark of your classroom. And you're going to probably be the most popular teacher in the school, quite frankly. But it's also just going to breed that partnership for you on the micro level. When you have parents come in and be involved and come in and volunteer. Like I know my 5th grade, we would do career day and we would bring in our parents from that year and they would talk about their careers. Anytime you bridge that gap, even on a micro level, kids win every time.
Now, are you seeing the benefits of this community involvement in the academic success of the students as well? Is that something that we want to keep encouraging? I mean, I feel like I would always want to encourage that community involvement into academic success. So first, just talk a little bit about that, because then I have another question that I'm like antsy to get to.
Sure, yeah. So Weymouth Township earned a National Blue Ribbon of Excellence in 2021, just prior to my appointment, for high academic standards and performance. So one of the things when I came on, admittedly, was a focus more on operations, knowing the school already had a very strong foundation academically. Obviously, with COVID, schools across the nation have had a huge dip in performance. Weymouth's not immune to that. Now that we have like what I would categorize as like the emergent issues of the district resolved, now our narrative and our focus has turned solely to academics and the, other factors like behavior management, student and teacher stress and burnout, like all of those things that end up leading to performance. So actually we just got our monitoring scores back. I'm going to report on it tonight at my board meeting, about where we are and where we're going. Just recently we promoted an outstanding teacher, Karen Marusi, to lead teacher. And part of her role is instructional coaching for other teachers. Because again, teaching is very lonely. I know for me, like I thought I was like a pretty good teacher, or at least good enough to not get fired. So I must have been doing like at least like a mediocre job, right? And then I went and saw some veteran teachers teach on my prep period and was totally like, I went home to my wife and said like, I'm awful. Like these people are amazing. And I'm like the worst teacher in the world. So getting, Karen out, the instructional coaching piece, letting them then be able to go visit other teachers and learn, just helps performance as a whole. So we're putting some things in place. We have a program now that's AI enhanced for the kids that helps tutor them. All those supports that get put in place are geared towards academic performance because it is core to our mission, right? We can have a really shiny building, we can have a really high positive morale, but if kids aren't learning, we've missed the mark, right? I mean, that is why we're there. It's just all those other things are important because they lead to student success.
So when I think about my classroom, I think about all the things that I have to put into my classroom, the community building, the new curriculum, the forming foundations, the going over the missed learning opportunities that they've had. So I have all these pulls in different directions, right? And then when I think about the higher ups or the superintendents, I feel that, and I may not be alone in this, but I feel that your focus, as much as you talk about community and building community, it really comes down to data. It really comes down to the numbers and seeing success. But then as a teacher, I get a little frustrated when we have, it's like, did you guys forget that we have to focus on these needs before we can even get to the data? That we have to focus on the family needs. We have to focus on, did they have snack today? Did they sleep last night? Are they coming to school on time? We have all these other things that are impacting our classrooms. And then when it comes down to maybe professional development that comes to us, or just data meetings, it really comes down to numbers. And I feel like there's a disconnect between what we're actually dealing with in the classroom and what the higher ups or the admin are expecting from us. And I feel like that puts so much more pressure on teachers. And you come from a perspective of being a teacher. So is there a point that you forget that? Or is there a point that you focus on that, but that no longer is your priority anymore because your priority is data and success and achieving? I know that's a whole lot to say, but I feel like there's still feel like there is a disconnect between what we actually see in the classroom and what's actually going on in the classroom and what is expected of teachers.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. I will say you're not wrong. I think those are all valid observations. And I think if you ask teachers across the globe, quite frankly, but especially across our country, at times we focus too heavily on data, especially when it comes in lieu of a knowledge of what's actually going on in a classroom, in a school, in a district, and in a community. And one of the things you said that really resonated with me is, what you described about like Maslow's hierarchy, like if a child is hungry, they cannot learn. Mm-hmm. That weighs heavily on the teacher. What weighs heavily on me is that my teachers also are the same, right? If I have a teacher who's going through something in their personal life, their professional life, whatever it is, if their basic needs are not met, I have failed as a leader to not consider that before I evaluate them or before I partner with them. And it's important to me because teaching is a very stressful job, right? Teacher retention is, I would argue, is probably the biggest issue facing education right now. And if we do not pour love and take care of our teachers and focus on them as whole people, we are going to continue to lose them and not be able to replace them. And, we say a lot of it, of course, is money, right? Teacher salaries lag far behind similarly credentialed professions. A lot of people want to say like, yeah, that's nice, but let's give them free pizza. Let's give them a donut, right? One, I'll just be very clear. And we've done this in Weymouth with a new 5-year teacher contract. We need to pay people fairly. End of story. If they cannot pay their bills, they cannot teach effectively. Secondary to that is their social emotional health as well. If teachers do not feel like they have someone to talk to, somewhere to go, someone to support them, again, they're going to get burned out. There's too much to do, right? It's an impossible task. And I feel that way about my position, even though it seems more vague from like a teacher's vantage point, like what does the soup do all day?
Right.
There is this inundation of paperwork. There's crises that teachers aren't just privy to. But then for the teacher, you have to give them mental health supports. We have in Weymouth, we've partnered with a company that provides on-site therapy, chair massages, mental health sessions, like an online platform for them to learn about from licensed psychologists, like depression, anxiety, substance abuse, things that are totally removed from the employment side of things. Like I have no access to what they've engaged in or what help they need. That's for them, because I know if they're not healthy, how can they possibly do their job, let alone just as a fellow human being? Like I have failed you as your colleague if I let you be depressed and anxious at work and just do nothing and sit by and say, yeah, but your scores went down 2%. That's worthless to the organization. It's worthless to the people, right? When Stephen M. R. Covey said last week at our conference, you have to slow down to go fast, right? We need to slow down and take care of the people if we want performance to skyrocket. Because if not, yeah, we can burn people out and maybe eke out a point or two a year and say we have growth, but that's not really the work, right? The work is to inspire people and care for them and get them to actually be better, not just make it look like they've gotten better.
It sounds to me like this is a really important connection or even a segue between supporting teachers' mental health, recognizing that they have more on their plate than they can probably ever attend to. And then the selection of professional development and initiatives that, are being developed for a school community. We know that sometimes, because we have all probably, I don't want to speak for anybody else, but I can bet that we have all sat in on professional development sessions or, full on semester initiatives that do not align with supporting teachers' mental health and their ability to do all of the things that they need to do. So I'm wondering, from your perspective, what are the decisions that go into the professional development selections that you make at Weymouth, but also when a teacher is experiencing, again, that disconnect, how can we be supportive of that?
Yeah. Trust me when I say, again, I'm a teacher at heart. If I have to watch bloodborne pathogens training one more time, I'm going to rip what's left of my hair out. So I completely empathize. I sit through some of that stuff and sit there and say, I can't believe I am doing this all over again. Like,
but do you really know what to do if someone bleeds?
I hereby promise my employer to never pick up broken glass with my bare hands. I will never dip myself in blood of any kind. I am fully aware of bloodborne pathogens, but I will be watching it for the rest of my life.
Yes, forever.
But what you said is very true. In a large district, we created a survey, like a pre-survey and a post-survey for professional development. Are there always going to be things that we have to do? Yes. As a middle manager, like curriculum supervisor, were there things that I was told I was offering for PD? Yeah. But when I could do it, I tried to include the teachers as much as possible. Like my middle school science teachers and I took the New Jersey practice test for science, and then we debated the answers together. Really authentic.
Amazing.
I mean, and you're also talking about master's level professionals arguing over an 8th grade test. And everybody had good points, and I'm scratching my head and I'm like, I don't think I know the right answer on this one. This is really embarrassing. But then in a small district, we've put our money where our mouth is. So when our teacher coach, our partner for mental health, comes in, I get subs for the day for the teachers so they can turn their brain off and focus on themselves and not on like, oh, I got to, hurry back and do this or that. So I think you do have to send the message that, you're investing in your people, right? Go slow to go fast. And then post professional development, you need to have those conversations with people of, are there going to be times where they say like, yeah, this is terrible. And you can say, yeah, but we need it. But then there are other times where you have to validate how they're feeling. Like my teachers complained a lot last year about the management of behaviors across the building. Mm-hmm. And instead, it would have been easy for me to say, well, that's on you. I mean, they're your kids, like get better. But I wouldn't say that, right? Instead, we brought in like a provider and we're doing a year-long series on crisis prevention training so they can de-escalate behaviors. Now, are some people going to say, this isn't what I wanted? Yeah, sure, right? I mean, I can't order pizza for a staff of 50 people, but it's what most people wanted. And then the other people, whatever their interests are, like I'll tell people, like I try to not say no. So if you send me a flyer and say, hey, this looks interesting, I want to go to this, I'm going to do my best to send you to it, even if the business administrator tells me we're out of money. We want people to go and get trained and be in their areas of interest, but we also just have to do the stuff we have to do. But we do try and respond to those things genuinely.
So that was a great point that you made, that sometimes the choices that you have to make are not going to meet the interests of every single teacher, especially when you have an entire district. But it is a political dance, right? So you have some things that are handed down from the state. There are some things that are just in the best interests of everyone, even if I don't want to go to this training one more time. But then there's going to be some things that I want to do, and you're going to support that. So that's really great to hear.
So Al, I want to kind of cap off here by saying a lot of what you are talking about can be really inspiring. And I think that there are a lot of younger teachers, or maybe not, even middle career teachers who are thinking, this is a space that I want to move into. But maybe they don't have the kind of support within their school or their district to kind of move along in that leadership, the route to, making that next step in their career. What would you suggest districts or principals or even individual teachers themselves do to kind of, if they're interested in district leadership, get themselves, moving in that direction?
Yeah, I think step one is, and my dear friend Jeff Christo and I wrote an article called Building Your Leadership Identity. And I think that step one is finding out what type of leader you are. I say all the time, like, you have to be matched really well where you are. So the type of leader you are has to align with the organization and the community, but you need to figure out who you are first. And I think a lot of times people at times can go into it a little bit blindly and just say, I know I want to be in that space, which is great, but you won't be effective if you don't really reflect on yourself and understand who you are as a leader. Whether you're a servant leader, transformational, autocratic, like whatever that is, whether it's good or bad, you have to know who you are. Secondary to that, for districts and principals, you have to give your folks an opportunity to grow. I told, we promoted Karen Marusi, the lead teacher, and I told her kind of half jokingly, like, you're never going to learn the job by not doing it. So This is your chance to learn the job, and you want to do this, and I want you to do this. I want you to succeed, and I want you to grow. So let's do it. Like, let's see what happens, right? And I felt the same way. Like, everyone's got to give someone a shot. But as a district, if you're not growing internal candidates, your organization is slowly dying like a war of attrition. And you can bring in as many new folks as you want. You're just going to lose your culture. You're going to lose any kind of longevity and retention. So you have to grow the folks that you have. So that would be my message to districts, bar none, is, look at who you have, look at who wants to be in that space, and then give them the opportunities, give them committee chairs, give them advisories, whatever you can do to grow them, whether it's like pseudo administrative, like a lead teacher, or whether it's something formal and like giving them a promotion, give them a shot.
And so as a teacher, even if I'm not fully confident that I could actually succeed in this role, if I have the aspiration and the ambition to do it, to try it,
to just jump in the ring, right?
Yeah.
Dip my toe in the water and try it. And then hopefully the people around me will help grow me and develop me at the same time, because you have to have that motivation in order to want to do it. But not everyone wants to. But, we don't always have that confidence in ourselves to go higher.
Yeah. Yeah, why not me and why not now, right? I mean, jump in.
Yeah.
I'd be lying to say I was not. I mean, I think for my first observation as a administrator, I was more nervous than the teacher. I was like literally like, oh my God, how am I going to tell this amazing teacher anything to improve on? So you're going to be nervous at first. It's something new. It's change, and change is hard. But it's worth it, right? It's worth it to help kids.
Yep.
Okay, Al, we've gone through the world of a superintendent and the way that you can relate to as a teacher, as another school leader, to the work that we're all doing to, improve outcomes for students, make communities stronger, all of that great stuff. But I think that we have not really covered this very, very important question that our audience really, I think, needs to know. And that is, why do you wait until 5:57 a.m. to cancel or delay school for bad weather? Why couldn't it be like 9 p.m. the night before so we can prepare?
Not set the alarm.
I don't want to have to pack my lunch. Mm-hmm. I just want to go and sleep.
Yeah.
Hey, I think we can all agree that the night before is the best time to call it off, right? Everyone gets to sleep in. It's funny. It's hard to please everyone. I will say that. Last year in New Jersey, we had one snow day, and I can tell you that I did call it the night before. And to be, not silly, I did have an employee in my previous district slip and fall on an icy morning. And I always remember that. And I explained to my board at the time, like, I tend to call them a little too early. But if I just save one person from breaking a leg, like, isn't that worth it? Like, we care about the kids, we care about the employees. But there are times where you do feel compelled to wait and see what the weather forecast is going to be. I think everyone's always afraid to be the first one in the area to call it off, right? I know our county works very closely together, all the soups in our county. So we have like a group chat, and we'll say like, here's what I'm doing, to make sure no one's like an island. There is that pressure. And to be honest, there are parents sometimes that say, I have to go to work, which means the kid has to go to school.
Yeah,
right.
So it's always a tough call. When I made my first one, I almost like waited to see like what would happen and what would the feedback be. But actually everyone was pretty happy, and it was a beautiful snow day. And we did a nice social media post. Everyone posted what they did on the day. So we had people like building snowmans or playing with their dogs and all kinds of fun stuff in the snow. It was really cute.
All right. So you just mentioned a superintendent group chat. Talk to me a little bit more about that. Like, what is the funniest meme you guys are sharing? You are sharing memes.
I can confidently say no memes have been shared. It is a very professional group chat, I will say, which is in total juxtaposition to my two group chats for my hockey teams that I'm on. I can't even open them at work. Like, I have to just save those for off-site viewing. But no, we are very well behaved. It's very professional. We leave it for like emergent communications.
That is disappointing.
I am very sorry. Very, very sorry.
Okay, so today
I would be the one to blow it up with gifs and memes, though. I would definitely be that person to send like
do it.
Like
do
Robert
it
Downey Jr. when he gets like all relieved, and be like, "This is
Friday."
I want you to do it today. You're going to be sending a meme into the group chat.
All right,
and we need receipts.
Deal.
Thank you so much again, Al Lewis. We have really enjoyed this conversation. I think it's been enlightening and kind of just emotionally invigorating. I think the work that you're doing is really exciting. And hopefully we all can take a little bit from your playbook to think about the way that we interact with the people that we work with and the kids that we're growing, to make life a little bit better and to recognize that we are really all a community that's doing this work. So I want to thank everybody for listening today. If you enjoyed what we talked about, please like or subscribe to Education Uncharted.
And follow our Instagram. We have a great Instagram.
We do.
We have a lot of fun with that.
Talking about memes. We're there for it.
Yeah. So I'm Lisa.
I'm Amanda.
And I'm Al.
And this is Education Uncharted.